They say people in a coma hear everything. I did. Every word from Dr. Carvalho, suggesting they unplug the machines. Every sob from my daughter Helena holding my hand. And I also heard the silence, that emptiness that settles in when everyone gives up on you. 3 months after the accident, I was trapped inside my own body. I knew who I was, Daniel Ferreira, former civil police investigator. I also knew why I was there. It wasn't an accident. It was revenge. Major Brando never forgave my report against his corruption scheme. The truck crash was far too precise to be a coincidence, but no one would believe a version I couldn't tell. Then Helena did something forbidden. She secretly brought Thor into the hospital, my 8-year-old German Shepherd. I smelled him before I heard him, that damp nose pressing against my face. And when he barked, it wasn't an ordinary bark. It was a desperate cry, a plea that cut through the darkness where I was floating. My fingers moved. A nurse screamed. The machines went off, and I came back. But Thor wasn't finished. That same night, he growled violently when Major Brando appeared in the corridor, dressed in civilian clothes, holding a syringe. The canine alert saved my life for the second time. Now, 3 weeks later, fully recovered and with the missing evidence in hand, I watch Brando handcuffed and being taken away. Thor barks by my side. Not in desperation this time. In victory. Because some heroes don't wear badges. They wear collars. My hands tremble as I hold the microphone. The courtroom is silent. That heavy, suffocating kind of silence where every breath echoes like judgment. 3 weeks. It's only been 3 weeks since I woke up from a coma that should have been my grave. Thor sits by my side. His dark fur gleams under the cold ceiling lights, and he watches me with those amber eyes that have seen more truth than any witness in this room. The judge allowed his presence, an extraordinary concession, they said. But none of this is ordinary. Nothing we've lived through was. I look ahead. From the defendant's bench, Major Brando stares at me. His face is a mask of stone, but I recognize the hatred behind that forced calm. He thought he had silenced me forever. He thought the truck crash had erased not only my life, but also my voice. I swallow hard. The prosecutor nods, encouraging me to begin. Helena, my daughter, is in the front row. Her red eyes beg me to be strong. I must be, for her, for me, for everyone Brando destroyed. They said I'd never wake up, I begin, and my voice sounds firmer than I expected. The doctors, my daughter, even I, trapped inside my body, began to believe it. 3 months of darkness. 3 months hearing the world give up on me. Thor shifts beside me, just an adjustment of position, but I feel his warmth against my leg. A silent reminder. He never gave up. But there was someone who didn't accept that fate. I pause, letting the weight of the words fill the courtroom. My dog brought me back, and with him, he brought the truth that this man, I point to Brando, tried to bury along with my body. The judge's gavel echoes as he calls the murmuring courtroom to order. Brando doesn't look away. But neither do I. Because today, 3 weeks after dying and being reborn, I am no longer the man who was afraid. Today I am the witness he feared the most. And my story is only just beginning. Let me go back to the beginning. The real beginning. When there was only silence and darkness. 3 months? 92 days to be exact. I counted every one of them, trapped inside a body that wouldn't respond, in a mind that screamed without anyone being able to hear. They say people in a coma don't know anything, that they're somewhere far away, floating in shapeless dreams. A lie? I was there, present, conscious, imprisoned. I heard everything. I heard Dr. Carvalho talking to Helena in the hallway, his voice low but not low enough. There's no significant brain activity, Miss Ferreira. We need to consider other options. Other options. Such a gentle way of saying, give up, unplug the machines, let your father die. I heard Helena crying while holding my hand, whispering, please, Dad, please come back. I need you. Every sob of hers was a blade piercing something in me that still felt pain. I wanted to squeeze her hand back, wanted to tell her I was there, that I wouldn't leave her alone. But my fingers were stone, my voice a non-existent echo. I heard the arguments, the conversations about hospital costs, about quality of life, about how long it was reasonable to wait. Weeks turned into months, and the silence took over. The visits dwindled, hopes died before I did. And I also heard my own thoughts, in an endless loop, repeating the same question. Why didn't I scream when I saw the truck coming? Because I knew. God, I knew from the moment that vehicle appeared in the wrong lane, speeding straight at me. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It wasn't a drunk driver. It was an execution, precise, calculated, inevitable. Major Brando had promised. You're going to regret this, Ferreira. You're going to regret opening your mouth. I was a civil police investigator. 23 years on the force, a man of principles, a single father raising a daughter the best way I could, with love and with truth as the foundation. When I uncovered the corruption scheme inside the department, when I saw the names of officers I respected involved in bribery, extortion, manipulation of evidence, I had no choice. I filed the report. Brando was the leader. A decorated major, war hero, untouchable in the eyes of the system. My report should have brought him down, but the system is built on invisible protections. The investigation was sabotaged. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses backed out. And I became the target. I should have left the city. I should have protected Helena better. I should have foreseen that men like Brando don't forgive, don't forget. But I hesitated. Out of cowardice or pride, I no longer know. And I paid the price. There, in that hospital bed, trapped between life and a death that was slowly approaching, I carried a weight heavier than silence. Regret. Not for having reported him, but for not having gone all the way. For letting him win. And as I sank deeper and deeper into darkness, one single certainty stayed with me. If I died, Brando would never pay for what he did. The truth would die with me. I was good at what I did. Not because of natural talent, but because of obsession. Every case was an equation that needed solving. Every lie a layer to be peeled back until only the raw, naked truth remained. Meticulous, they called me. Stubborn, others said. I prefer to think I was simply incapable of accepting injustice. It was that incapacity that led me to Brando. The operation started small. An anonymous tip about extortion at a precinct in the South Zone. Routine investigation. But the deeper I dug, the worse the stench became. Bribes from traffickers. Evidence tampered with to protect allies. False arrests to eliminate enemies. And at the center of it all, like a spider weaving its web, Major Brando. I spent 8 months building the case. Documents, recordings, testimonies. Each piece fitted with surgical precision. I knew I was playing with fire, but I thought the truth would be shield enough. How naive. The week after my formal report, a dead rat was found in my mailbox. A week later, my car was vandalized. Then came the late-night calls. Silence on the other end. But I knew who was listening. The threats became more direct. Take care of your daughter, Ferreira. Accidents happen. Helena was 16. I sent her to stay with my sister in another city. I stopped going out alone. I started sleeping with my gun under the pillow. My colleagues began to avoid me. No one wanted to be near a target. The isolation was silent, but absolute. And then came Thor. He wasn't a choice. He was an accident. The police kennel was shutting down the sniffer dog program, and Thor, a 5-year-old German Shepherd trained to detect explosives, was being retired due to a hip injury. Available for adoption, they said. No one wanted him. Working dogs don't adapt well to domestic life, they explained. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I recognized. A tired soldier who still had fight left in him. I took him home that same afternoon. Thor wasn't affectionate. He didn't jump, didn't wag his tail frantically, didn't lick my face, but he stayed, always close, always alert. When I sat up late reviewing documents, he lay at my feet. When I paced the house at 3 in the morning, sleepless and paranoid, he followed me in silence. It wasn't affection that bound us. It was something deeper. It was loyalty. That kind of loyalty that needs no words, that doesn't judge, that never abandons. Thor became my shadow, my guard, my only friend in a world where trusting could get you killed. He never barked without reason. Every growl had cause, every warning, substance. Thor could read danger better than any investigator, and I learned to trust him more than any human being. Because in the end, when everyone else turned their backs, when even the system I had sworn to protect abandoned me, only he remained. A retired dog, with scars on his paws and loyalty in his blood. And that, I realized too late, was more than I deserved. I was sinking, each day deeper, further away, more lost in the darkness that had become my only reality. 3 months is too long to scream without being heard, too long to fight against invisible chains pulling you down. I was tired. My thoughts, once sharp and desperate, were beginning to dissolve. Acceptance, maybe, or surrender. Then I smelled it. It wasn't gradual. It was like a lightning bolt cutting through the fog. Intense, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Wet earth, warm fur, that unique smell only those who've had a dog know. Thor. It was Thor. But how? Dogs don't enter hospitals. They don't enter ICUs. Was I imagining it? My mind playing cruel tricks before the end? Then came the touch. A damp nose pressed against my face. Warm, real, panting breath close to my ear. I felt it. God, I felt it. For the first time in 3 months, something from the outside world wasn't just a distant sound or light filtered through my eyelids. It was physical sensation, tangible, undeniable. Thor was there. My brain, that part of me still functioning inside that dead body, lit up like fire. He came. Helena brought him. Against all the rules, against all logic, my daughter did the impossible and brought my dog to me. And then Thor barked. It wasn't the warning bark I knew so well. It wasn't the guard growl when he sensed danger. It was something I had never heard from him before. A desperate howl, high-pitched, torn, coming from a place so deep it went beyond the animal and touched something primal. It was pure desperation. It was a plea. It was an absolute refusal to accept what everyone else had accepted. Thor wasn't greeting me. He was calling me back. The sound pierced the darkness like a spear. It echoed inside me, in the deepest layers of my dormant consciousness, in that place where my will to live still resisted, weak but not dead. And something responded. Something inside me that had forgotten how to fight remembered. My finger moved. It was almost nothing, a microscopic tremor, an involuntary contraction that in any other context would be insignificant. But in that moment, in that hospital room where I had been declared a lost cause, that movement was a miracle. Thor barked again, louder, more urgent, as if he knew, as if he felt he had reached me and wasn't going to let go. I heard distant voices, Helena shouting, running footsteps, machines beeping alarms. My heart sped up. I felt it accelerate. My lungs pulled in air with more force. My eyes, heavy as stones for 3 months, began to move beneath my eyelids. Thor kept barking, without stopping, without giving up, his voice filling the entire space, driving out the silence, refusing death. And I began to rise. Through the layers of unconsciousness, through the thick fog that had been my prison, I began to rise toward that voice, the voice of the one being who had never stopped believing, who had never signed my death sentence, who came to get me from the darkest place a man can be. My eyes opened, just a crack, blinding light, blurred shapes, but open. I saw the white ceiling. I saw Helena beside me, hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I saw nurses rushing into the room, and I saw Thor. His nose inches from my face, amber eyes locked on mine, barking as if his life depended on it. Maybe it did, because at that moment I understood a truth no doctor, no protocol, no science could explain. Sometimes love is literal. Sometimes loyalty really can bring someone back from the dead. They took me back to the room after hours of tests. My body was a collection of weaknesses, atrophied muscles, childlike coordination, Every movement a Herculean effort. But I was awake, conscious, alive. The doctors called it a miracle. I called for him by name, Thor. Helena had to leave. She was exhausted. 3 months of vigilance taking its toll. I insisted she go home to rest. She hesitated, but eventually agreed. Before she left, though, she did something I only understood later. She hid Thor under my hospital gurney. "He brought you back, Dad," she whispered, stroking the dog's head. "I won't leave him away from you now." It broke every protocol. But after what had happened earlier, after the impossible everyone had witnessed, no one had the heart to remove him. The nurses pretended not to see. The doctor looked the other way. Thor stayed. It must have been around midnight when they turned off the corridor lights. The hospital took on that particular hush of the early hours. Not total silence, but that low murmur of machines breathing, distant footsteps, lives being monitored. I was half awake, half lost in that nebulous state between consciousness and sleep, when I felt it. A growl, low, guttural, coming from beneath the gurney. Thor. My whole body went on alert. I knew that growl. It wasn't discomfort. It wasn't a dream. It was a warning. Danger. I forced my eyes to focus on the shadows. The door to the room was closed. Everything looked normal. But Thor never missed. He never had. The growl grew. He came out from under the gurney, positioning himself between me and the door. Hackles raised, body coiled like a spring ready to launch. Then the door opened. Slowly, silently. A silhouette entered. A tall man, broad shoulders, measured movements. He wore civilian clothes, dark jeans, a nondescript jacket. But I would recognize that military posture anywhere. Major Brandon. My blood froze. He took a few steps forward, and the dim light of the heart monitor lit his face. Expressionless, unhurried. In his right hand something glinted. A syringe. "Ferreira," he said softly, almost kindly. "Impressive. You really woke up." A pause. But some miracles are temporary. I tried to scream. My voice came out as a weak, useless scratch. My body wouldn't respond. 3 months of immobility had left me helpless as a child. Brandon took another step, and Thor exploded. The bark tore through the night silence like an explosion. It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration of war. He lunged, teeth bared, all his military training surfacing. 80 kilos of furious German Shepherd positioned himself between me and death. Brandon backed off, surprised. "Damn!" Thor kept barking, nonstop, each sound echoing down the corridor, a living alarm impossible to ignore. He pushed forward again, forcing Brandon back toward the door. I heard voices, running footsteps, lights turning on. Brandon looked at me one last time, pure hatred in those eyes, and disappeared down the corridor. Seconds later, 2 security guards dashed into the room. "What happened? We heard—" "A man," I managed to say, my voice still weak. "Came in. Syringe. Tried to—" They ran after him. Thor continued barking, refusing to move from in front of me, until Helena arrived 10 minutes later, out of breath and terrified. She hugged me, crying. I knew it. I knew he would come back. I stroked Thor's head. He finally calmed, lying down beside my bed, but still vigilant, eyes fixed on the door. The next morning, the investigators came. They reviewed the security cameras, and there he was, Major Brandon, clearly identifiable, entering the hospital at 11:47 p.m., going up to my floor, fleeing 8 minutes later when the guards showed up. Proof. Undeniable proof. Proof no lawyer could erase, no political connection could bury. Thor hadn't just brought me back from the dead. He had saved me from dying again. And more than that, he had given me what I most needed to destroy Brandon once and for all. Evidence. Sitting on that bed, still weak but finally armed with the truth, I looked at my dog and understood. He wasn't just a companion. He wasn't just loyal. Thor was my protector, my guardian, my hero. And now, with those security images, he was also my most powerful weapon. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in 3 months, I had ammunition to fight back. Recovery was slow. Daily physical therapy, muscles relearning basic movements, Coordination returning little by little, but healing my body was the easy part. The hard part was what had to come out from inside. The truths I had swallowed out of fear, the secrets that had almost died with me. Helena brought the investigators 3 days after Brando's attempt. 2 internal affairs detectives, serious faces, recorder on. They wanted my complete version, not just of the hospital attack, but of everything. You need to tell them everything, Dad, Helena said, holding my hand. Everything you never told me. And then I spoke, for the first time, without filters, without fear, without hesitation. I told them about the original investigation, the 8 months tracking Brando's scheme. But I also told them what I had kept, what I had discovered and left out of the official report. Because Brando wasn't alone. He never was. There were others. 6 officers to be exact. Chiefs, captains, a prosecutor. Some were colleagues I respected. One had been my mentor. People I trusted. People I thought were on the right side of the law. Why didn't you report all of them? Asked the investigator, leaning forward. Silence. The question that had tormented me for 3 months in the dark. Because I was afraid, I admitted, and the words came out like a confession. Brando was the big fish. I thought if I brought him down, the rest would fall with him. But mostly because when you discover the whole system is rotten, you realize there's no safe place to run. Helena squeezed my hand tighter. I hesitated. I edited my report. I focused only on Brando, left the other names out. I thought it was strategic that I could go after them later, with more evidence, more protection. I laughed, a bitter sound, but it was cowardice disguised as strategy. I knew it, and I paid the price. The older investigator nodded slowly. And that's why your original report was sabotaged. Exactly. They were inside. They had access to the files, the evidence, the witnesses. Evidence disappeared. Documents were lost. Witnesses changed their minds. It wasn't incompetence. It was calculated sabotage. Do you have the names? He asked. I do. All of them. Right here. I pointed to my head. I memorized everyone before the accident, as if I knew it might be my last chance to remember. I spent the next hour dictating names, positions, evidence I had kept. Some of the original files still existed, copies I had hidden in places only I knew, places I would now reveal. There's one more thing, I said, my voice lowering. The truck. It wasn't just Brando. The driver was a former soldier, connected to one of the chiefs on the list. They coordinated it. It was an operation, not a lone attack. The room fell into heavy silence. Helena had tears in her eyes. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you carry this alone? Because telling you would have put you at risk, I answered, looking at her. And because I was ashamed. Ashamed of having hesitated, of not being brave enough to take them all down when I had the chance. She wrapped her arms around my neck. You're being brave now. But I wasn't sure of that. Courage was doing the right thing the first time. This was just trying to fix the damage my cowardice had caused. The investigators left with pages of notes. They promised to reopen the case, investigate all the names, search for the hidden evidence. With the hospital camera footage showing Brando trying to assassinate me, they had grounds for a larger operation. The dog's testimony also helped, said the older investigator at the door with a half smile. Legally, we call it circumstantial evidence. His alert, the timing, the reaction. It's not direct evidence, but it contextualizes everything. Shows pattern of behavior, intent, real danger. Thor was lying in the corner of the room, watching everything, as if he knew it was about him. After everyone left, I was alone with Helena and Thor. The ward was quiet. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally. You did the right thing, Dad, Helena said softly. I should have done it a long time ago. But you're doing it now. And this time, you'll see it through. I looked at Thor. He had come over to me, resting his head on my lap. His amber eyes looked at me with something that felt like understanding. This dog had saved me twice. He had given me a second chance I didn't deserve. And now, with the secrets finally unearthed, with the truth spoken without fear, I had the obligation to use this chance right. I couldn't hesitate anymore. I couldn't let fear paralyze me again. Because this time I wasn't fighting alone. I had Helena. I had the honest investigators still left in the system. I had the evidence. And I had Thor, the unlikely hero who had become my anchor in a world that had almost drowned me. The secrets were unearthed. The truth was in the light. Now only one thing remained: to ensure justice would be done, no matter who fell in the process, no matter how many powerful names were on the list. This time, I would see it through to the end. And here we are, back in the courtroom, at the moment when everything is decided. I take a deep breath and continue my testimony. The room is in absolute silence. The kind of silence where you can feel every person holding their breath, waiting. Thor remains at my side, still as a statue, but I feel his warmth against my leg. An anchor, a reminder of why I'm here. For 8 months, I continue, my voice echoing through the room. I investigated the corruption scheme led by Major Brandon. Bribes from traffickers, evidence tampered with, false arrests, innocent people imprisoned, guilty ones protected. All documented, all recorded, all proven. I pull out the folder the prosecutor handed me. But it wasn't just him. There were others. 6 officers in positions of power, chiefs, captains, a prosecutor. I pause. People I trusted. I begin naming each one. Their names echo through the courtroom like sentences. I see some of the accused, seated in the gallery, turn pale. Others bow their heads. Brando remains expressionless, but his eyes cut through me with pure hatred. When I filed my original report, it was sabotaged from within. Evidence disappeared, witnesses changed their stories, and my voice falters for a second. I was afraid. I didn't include all the names in the report. I thought it was strategic, but it was cowardice. Helena, in the front row, shakes her head subtly. No, Dad, but she doesn't understand. I need to say this. Because of my hesitation, they had time to regroup, to plan. And when they realized I was still a threat, even in silence, I lock eyes with Brando. They decided to eliminate me. The truck that hit me? The driver was ex-military, connected to Chief Carvalho. It wasn't an accident. It was an execution. I present the evidence, documents I had hidden years ago, testimonies from people who finally found the courage to speak, financial records showing dirty money changing hands. Each piece of evidence is another nail in the coffin of Brando's defense. But then comes the moment I've been waiting for. The most important moment. 3 weeks ago, I say, my voice lowering, more intimate. I was in a coma. The doctor said I'd never wake up. They were discussing unplugging the machines. And I heard it all, trapped inside my own body. Unable to scream, to fight, to live. I look at Thor. He looks back at me, as he always has. Then my daughter did something forbidden. She brought my dog to the hospital. Thor, a retired German Shepherd, trained by the police, with scars on his paws and loyalty in his blood. And when he saw me in that bed, he refused to accept it. He barked. Not an ordinary bark, but a desperate cry that pierced the darkness where I was floating. The room is absolutely silent, and I came back. My finger moved. My eyes opened. An animal, guided only by instinct and loyalty, did what medicine had given up on. He brought me back. The prosecutor steps closer. And was that all the dog did? No. My voice grows firmer. That same night, Thor was hidden beneath my gurney, and he began to growl. A warning growl. The same he used during police operations when he sensed danger. Seconds later, my room door opened. I point at Brandon, and he walked in. Major Brandon, dressed in civilian clothes, holding a syringe. He came to finish what the truck hadn't. But Thor exploded, barked, lunged, forced Brandon to retreat. The guards came running. Brandon fled, and the security cameras caught everything. The monitors in the room light up, showing the footage. Brandon entering the hospital, going up to my floor, fleeing minutes later, all recorded. Undeniable. A dog, I say, and there's something like reverence in my voice, did what entire systems failed to do. He protected an innocent man. He unmasked a guilty one. He brought the truth to light when everyone else had given up. Brandon's lawyer stands, sarcasm dripping from his voice. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. A hero dog? We're talking about an animal. He can't testify. He doesn't need to testify. The prosecutor cuts in, sharp as a blade. The cameras testify. The dog's alert is context. It shows there was real danger, real intent, real threat, and science supports it. Trained dogs detect threats humans can't. His alert was followed minutes later by the defendant entering with a syringe. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. The judge strikes the gavel. Objection overruled. Continue, Mr. Ferreira. I look at Brandon one last time. He's pale now, the mask beginning to crack. For years this man operated above the law, protected by connections, by power, by others just as corrupt as him. And when someone tried to expose him, they were silenced. By fear, by intimidation, by death. My voice rises, but he didn't count on one thing. He didn't count that there would be someone who wouldn't give up. Someone whose loyalty couldn't be bought, whose courage couldn't be threatened, whose truth couldn't be buried. I place my hand on Thor's head. He didn't count on this, on pure loyalty, on unconditional love, on a hero who doesn't wear a badge, but wears a collar. The room erupts in murmurs. The judge pounds the gavel repeatedly, calling for order. I return to my seat. Thor follows, each step synchronized with mine, as it has always been. Hours later, after closing arguments, after deliberations, the judge returns. The room rises. Having reviewed all the evidence presented, documents, testimonies, financial records, and the unquestionable security footage from Santa Cruz Hospital, this court finds the defendant, Major Augusto Brandão. The silence is deafening. Guilty of corruption, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, and criminal conspiracy. The gavel falls, and something inside me, something that had been broken for a very long time, finally heals. Justice, not perfect, not complete, but real. I look at Thor. He barks once, not in desperation, not in warning, in victory. Because today, in this room, before everyone, the truth won. And a dog proved that heroes come in the most unlikely forms. We leave the courthouse under the afternoon sun. Helena holds my arm, and Thor walks by my side, his presence solid and constant as it has always been. The marble steps seem endless, but this time I'm not climbing them. I'm descending, free, alive, victorious. Behind us, inside that house of justice, Brandão and his accomplices await transfer to prison. Years of sentences ahead, careers destroyed, legacies stained. The machinery of the law, after years of slumber, finally woke up and did its job. But that's not what matters now. Helena looks at me, eyes still red but smiling. It's over, Dad. It's really over. Yes, I answer, but my voice carries something more than relief. It carries understanding, because the real victory wasn't the sentence. It wasn't seeing Brandão in handcuffs. It wasn't justice restored, important as that may be. The real victory was the second chance. I look at Thor. He watches me with those amber eyes that know my soul better than anyone else. This dog, this retired German Shepherd, with scars on his paws and loyalty in his blood, gave me something no system, no judge, no sentence could ever give. He gave me life. Twice. When everyone gave up, when medicine declared it impossible, when even I was ready to let go, he refused. His desperate bark tore through the darkness and pulled me back. And when death came for me again, disguised as a man with a syringe, he stood between us, protected, saved, warned. An animal guided only by instinct and love did what entire systems had failed to do. You know, Helena, I say as we walk, we spend our lives looking for heroes in the wrong places, in badges, in titles, in ranks. We expect justice to come from powerful people, from institutions, from those with authority. She listens in silence, but true heroes appear in the most unlikely places, in the darkest moments. And sometimes, I stroke Thor's head. They have 4 legs and a heart bigger than any human courage. Thor barks, once, clear, strong. It isn't the bark of desperation that pulled me from the coma. It isn't the growl of warning that saved me from Brandão. It is a bark of victory. We stop at the bottom of the steps. The world opens before us. A world where I can walk free, where Helena no longer has to live in fear, where truth finally prevailed. And I think back to the words with which I began this testimony, the same words that have defined these last months. They said I'd never wake up, I murmur, more to myself than anyone else. Helena squeezes my arm, but they forgot one thing. I look at Thor, and he looks back, and in that gaze, there is everything. Loyalty, love, trust, victory. When you have someone who never gives up on you, not even death can win. The wind blows softly. The sun warms our faces. And for the first time in years, I feel something I had forgotten. Peace. Shall we go home? Helena asks. Yes, I answer. Let's. And as we walk through the streets, the 3 of us together, one certainty follows me. Some heroes don't wear badges. They wear collars. And they save lives not because they were trained to, not because they were ordered to, not because there's a reward, but because loyalty is their only language, and love their only command.